everybody, welcome to the Bituation Room podcast, live stream, direct from evacuation. I am Francesca Fiorentini, and I am here, not in my home, not in my studio, obviously, an undisclosed, evacuated space. Hopefully the internet holds up. God, it doesn't, it's not looking good, but let me know if it holds up. Thank you so much, of course, for being here. I think we're going to make this a bonus show, meaning this is for patrons. It's free to watch live, but to listen back, to watch back, it'll go private after we stream, and that will be for all the awesome patrones, you know, the newest members of the Frantifa, keeping it real. There are many of you, and I really appreciate it. You know, I've been doing this show in earnest since 2020, since, you know, the pandemic forced us all to do streaming. I should have done TikTok dances. Let's be real. That would have been more lucrative. But again, it's not about the money. It's about whether or not you could live with yourself doing TikTok dances. The point is this. This is the Bituation Room. It is a now tri-weekly show. And this is the second stream. We usually stream on Wednesdays. But of course, yesterday I was fleeing my house from the fires and here in Los Angeles. So I did want to just talk about the fires for, you know, the extent to which I have energy, all the different angles to what is happening, and then some thoughts on the political angle, which I think we're going to hear a lot of, give you what's been going on with me yesterday. Gosh, on Tuesday night, it was very clear that the Santa Ana winds were coming for the LA area, which they do every single year. And to be honest with you, I've lived in LA since 2018, and I've never had experienced the Santa Ana winds, obviously quite in this way. But of course, Angelenos who've lived here for their entire lives, 40, 50, 60 years, have also never experienced what is now being called the worst day in LA history. I might say the Rodney King murder and riots might have been up there. But, if there was a lesson to be learned from that, there is also a lesson to be learned from this, of course, time and again. And of course, the United States and especially capitalists refuse to learn this lesson of keeping it in the ground. But let's put that aside. So Tuesday night, we streamed. I actually went out and did a show. My power went out at 7 p.m. And I think had the power been on, I might have stayed. But honestly, going to sleep that night was really difficult. And around 3 or 4 in the morning, you could just smell. It smelled like you were sleeping next to a campfire, right? Like, it would have been nice if there had been s'mores or something, because it was potent. And again, all the windows were closed. I didn't tape everything off. You can put a cold towel around your door if you are in the LA area. You can seal things off with tape, but I will advise you to definitely try to leave, especially because of the air quality. So that was the deal with me, and especially having a 2-year-old. It's time to go. You got to go. So the next morning, we left the area. My immediate neighborhood was not under evacuation. It's unclear. According to some apps, it was evacuation order. Or it was an evacuation order, but then I was getting like an Amber Alert that was like, not an Amber Alert, you know what I'm saying? An alert on my phone that said, you need to go. So the fire is basically just north and just east of me. So thankfully we were able to leave. Sadly, however, Matt, my husband's sister, and her family lost their entire home in Altadena, completely burned to the ground. And Altadena is a residential neighborhood. It is not a rich neighborhood. It's very middle income. It's like people who finally were able to afford a home, but who got priced out of other neighborhoods. It is close to the mountains, the Angeles National Forest, which does burn from time to time. But again, never have we seen. And when I say the Santa Ana winds, you guys need to understand, it's like, you go outside and it's like, oh, it's fine. And then all of a sudden a gust of wind that's like 60 miles an hour. Of course, we were talking about 90, 100 miles an hour will just come out of nowhere. And so that was able to propel whatever small spark or flame or whatever created, it's like everyone's looking for a culprit. And it's like, man, a culprit could have been anything. Like, I don't know, a culprit could have been a beaver rubbing two sticks together in the woods. Like, who knows? You know, the culprit might have, like, it's very, very easy for a small flame to get massive and again to spread. So, but anyway, she lost her entire home. She's got 2 small kids. If you have, you know, you have a lot of places to donate. There's a lot of people asking, but this is just a personal connection. If you need one, you know, their birthdays are in a week. And again, they are like very, very squarely middle class, and things like this are the difference between having any kind of savings and wealth and not, right? And having being in a really dire situation, and so many people are facing that right now. So I put a link to donate to their GoFundMe, and if you can, that would be awesome. You know, we are fine now. We're gonna wait until the smoke clears a little bit, but these fires, the Eaton Fire, which is in Altadena on the east side of LA, and then the Palisades Fire, which is on the west side of LA, which again includes so many homes. And like, yeah, there's like mansions and stuff, but like the Palisades is also a place where people just own homes forever. And like those beachfront properties on Malibu, like they're not just mansions, you know, even if they are. I'm just saying, like, these are people who've been there for a long time. They're establishments, they're restaurants, they're businesses that have been there forever. And so I'm almost more concerned with that area as it looks into rebuilding, because you can only imagine the kind of billionaire wealth, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, here in Los Angeles, that would be desperate to sink its teeth into that coastal property. And as Naomi Klein so aptly wrote in Shock Doctrine, you know, basically use this as an opportunity to do massive developments along the waterfront and price everybody out. Mean Streets on YouTube, you know, a lot of people are thinking about Maui, you know, and they're thinking about Maui right now because of a couple things. The lack of water, fire hydrants are running dry in some of these areas. And that exactly happened in Maui. It happened in Lahaina. And also the fact that Lahaina is, again, it is touristy, it is desirable, and yet there are a lot of small business owners and locals who've been there forever. And the rebuilding is so critical to having real justice coming out of this, to say nothing of like climate stuff. Mean Streets said also that Lahaina was a fire trap because of winds. I was in Lahaina before the area was burned down. The front is gone. Fleetwood Mac's restaurant was destroyed. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I guess I just want to zoom out and name a couple of things before we get into all of this, because it's all hidden, you know, it's all like, there's so many different angles and aspects of it. I have all of my ducks in a row here. There is something particularly striking about men. Look, people have lost their lives. That is very real. People have lost their homes. People have lost their schools, their businesses. But when we look at why this is happening and why these kinds of fires are spreading so rapidly, these normal, you know, sort of crazy winds are becoming even more intense. Why there hasn't been rainfall this entire, I think, since last spring in Southern California, which is exacerbated everything. I mean, it's literally a tinderbox. Like, you go hiking in Southern California and it's beautiful, it's nice, but there's also this really eerie feeling of everything could go up in smoke. It's a tinderbox, truly. And we're talking about forests. You know, these are forests. These are places that should be lush. These are not places that should be this dry. But you think about like how brutally at odds the way we live our lives and what capitalism has done to this planet, and how we think about infinite growth on a finite planet, as it's often called, and how completely wrong-headed that is, and how we are not only making one another suffer the consequences of this, but we are making all living creatures on this planet suffer as a result. And, you know, we're all kind of suckers for this stuff, where we're like, yeah, I don't really like humans, because humans are bad sometimes. But then you see, these images, right, of wildlife. And this is, if you're listening, there's a deer running through Altadena, trying to escape the fire. And this is like clearly a baby deer. It's just like desperate. And it's like, where the hell do we go? Where the hell, what'd you all do, man? What'd you fucking humans do, dog? Can we not? That's our home. Now we got to come down to your home. And this is just so like apt when you live in LA and everyone's all freaked out about like coyotes and things like this. And it's like, yeah, coyotes are scary. They eat your dogs and your cats and all this. But like coyotes and bears and all these animals, they're also just thirsty. They need food. They need water. And so like, again, with everything, right? With everything. And, if you are, I'm like, part of me is like, man, you vegans got it. You know what I'm saying? But it's all the ways we disrespect animal life on this planet. And we think of ourselves as not living on planet Earth. And we think of ourselves as being able to extract as much fossil fuels to propel our consumerist way of life, and that it will never come back to hurt us. And of course it does, and it has, and it always will. And unless we get right and live in sync with this incredible gift of a planet that we've all been given, because guess what? There's no fucking water on Mars, okay? And I would really like Elon to go fucking get it. If they're like, I don't know, there's like a shadow under one rock, like go there, then fucking go. But guess what? This planet is amazing. And if we have the sense, like so many native ancestors on this continent and on many others had the sense to use the planet to help them and their communities and societies, but also honor the planet by not digging all of it up, cutting all of it down, burning all of it for fuel. Like, this is the point. This is the problem. And of course, it is at once very callous to just focus on climate change and, oil companies. So that's why I go, because in this moment I think about recovery and I think about, preparedness and think about all this. But that's why I go, you see like then animal life. It's like these are the most apolitical motherfuckers out there. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have anything to do with it. They didn't vote for Karen Bass. And we'll talk about that in a second. Because I have obviously some thoughts, and it gets worse than her. But so that needs to be named. That needs to be said. Everything else that is all of the noise that's going to come out from what has been happening. These fires are not contained. All of the mudslinging, the blame game that is happening right now, which I'm not saying there is no blame to be had, but until an actual politician has the temerity, has the guts, has the sensibility to say, hey, I am running on a keep it in the ground platform. I am running on this existential question. None of this flitting around the edges. This is about saving lives now. I am running on a completely 100% renewable energy now, today, not in 2030, now. What would climate scientists said? What do we have? We had 12 years to stop this massive extraction, to stop the worst impacts of climate change, right? That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So we all need to be Greta in this moment. So that's what I mean. It's just like being able to focus on also how out of sync we are with animal life is like very, I don't know. It's grounding. It's grounding. Dare I be a little woo-woo about that? It's a little grounding. So I wanted to watch a few things and then get into some of the angles around this. But here is, look at this. These are people evacuating horses from Altadena. The flames are everywhere. They're living literally inside of a fireplace. There's ash and ember everywhere as they try desperately to get these horses out. Sorry, it's low. Can you guys hear this at all? Okay. It's very low, but they said there's a whole barn and they're trying to evacuate these horses. They just literally let some of them go. That's how bad it had been. So I apologize that the volume is so low. I don't know how to boost it. So we'll just keep going. Hopefully this is a little bit better. This is from Altadena also, Senior Center burning. So she's interviewing a firefighter, and who's saying that they're basically what they've got to do because everything's run dry is that they've got to go to a different fire hydrant in a different neighborhood to try and get it, get water that way. There were stories of people using pool water, taking pool water from their pools and rushing it in in garbage canisters over to try and put out the fire. It's endless. And one of the things I think is important, and for the people who are curious, I think this was published the morning of these fires. Yesterday was the 8th. So Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday was the 7th. So this was right on the cusp. And this is the Times explaining that there's been no rain. Ordinarily, the region would have seen some rain by January, and also up north, they have had good amounts of rain. Southern California is extremely dry right now. Huge portions of the region have been seeing less than a quarter inch of rain in the last 8 months. The landscape is parched and vegetation is withered, making the area dangerously susceptible to burning, an unusual situation for January. Now, normally, fire season is from the dog days of summer, kind of August, September, through October, November. That's sort of when, because obviously it's right at the end of summer, things have dried out. That's when fire season is. Now having it in January, not having had any rain in December, that's completely different. And people who live in Los Angeles know that, oh shit, now hands down, fire season is year round. This sort of dryness we're seeing a lot in the plant species right now. It mirrors what you would typically expect in October, early November, when the rainy season starts, said Jonathan O'Brien, a meteorologist with the U.S. Forest Service. Wildfires are a year-round threat in California, but a good soaking of rain or in fall, or at least the start of winter, usually puts an end to the peak part of the wildfire season, when the most destructive wildfires typically occur. About 2 inches of rain is required to saturate the ground and vegetation and significantly lower the wildfire risk. Northern California has received that much and a lot more recently, thanks to a series of powerful storms in November, December. Southern California generally trends drier than the north, but the region usually received a shot or two of rain by the end of December and certainly by January, not this year. The region's dry start to winter comes after a summer, marked by prolonged record-breaking heat that baked the landscape and cooked the trees and brush. The National Weather Service gauge in downtown LA, a good indicator for rainfall in Southern California, has recorded only 0.29 inches of rain since May 2024. It's the second least amount of rain that's ever measured in this roughly 8-month time period, with records going back to 1877. The second least amount of rain since 1877. And it's not about climate change. Oh yeah, it's just a political failure. So that, this is something that I think is really important to talk about, because last year there was rain. Around December, January, there was rain. In fact, there was a lot of rain. There was a pretty rainy season last year. But I remember at the time, what people were saying at the time was that there's so much rain, but it's not going to do any good because the ground can't necessarily absorb that much rain, especially when you have these like periods of incredible drought followed by periods of incredible rain. When something's super dry like that, it can only absorb so much. So a lot of the rain sort of kind of goes to waste in some ways. And this is what, when people say, people who are obviously climate specialists and experts, people like Michael Mann, people like Bill McKibben, people like obviously Naomi Klein's written a bunch about this. What they say is twofold. Number one, it's not just about stopping fossil fuels. It's not just about moving to renewables immediately. It's not just about all of the political ways we can rein in the fossil fuel industry. It is also about preparedness, right? There, about 10 years ago, maybe there was a switch around our discussions about saving the environment and climate change and all this, to climate preparedness, to climate justice in many ways, saying we know that this is happening and this is coming, and the worst is yet to come. The things that we are experiencing are from the industrial era. So if we're experiencing something from 100 years ago, what the fuck do you think the future is going to hold? We can prevent even worse impact or consequences, but what we have to do is start with preparedness. We have to start changing how we respond to this, right? New Orleans taught us that. Katrina taught us that. How are we prepared for these events? And so when I relate that to the rainfall and just overall, there is such little, just like in anything in the United States, there is such little care for prevention, whether it's healthcare and preventing one from getting sick and doing all kinds of preventative measures, screenings and whatnot. But the same thing with the climate and the environment and climate catastrophes, right? When you have an excessive amount of rainfall, how can we use innovation, what fucking, tech billionaires love to squawk about but are super unrealistic about? How can we use innovation to actually rain capture and use that water, right? Like, why are these hydrants running dry? How are there ways where we can take advantage of the situation that we've already been put in, that we are already in? This is about mitigating the impacts. This is about being climate prepared. And so many cities are simply not. So many, obviously, homes are not. There's just no preparedness. And let us be real, and we'll now move to talk about insurance. It's very significant that in the midst of these wildfires, and in the last few years, insurance companies are refusing to insure homeowners for their homes. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking like, oh, a homeowner, where's one of those? Like, right. Yes, it is a privilege to own a home, especially in a place like California. However, what good is it when you're facing down extreme climate events and your insurance company will not insure you for fire? When they are leaving the state, as they did in Florida, as they're doing in California. This is not a fucking blue, red shit. This is not a partisan thing, right? When insurance companies, I mean, we're talking the scum of the scum who are only in it to make money. When they are saying, we no longer see the profit in insuring these homes, we've got a problem. You have real problems. Suddenly and all the people, all the capitalists and all the money makers and all the get back to workers, like Elon, like Rick Caruso, like Donald Trump, who are so fucking focused on the economy. Well, your economy's not working. Like, what about the insurance industry? Don't they want to make some money? Isn't this good for them? What about home ownership, right? What about real estate? What about all of the things that we're told to put our money in? We're told to invest our life savings in. But it's so clear that climate change will not allow us, and even sectors of capitalism are telling us, nah, man, it's too bad out here. And so, as an example, here is a woman who is in Altadena, and she is pissed because she's a nurse and she's frustrated. This is from ABC Local, because her parents' fire insurance was canceled before the fire. Let me just. Oh, can you guys not? Is there no sound? Oh my God, I'm so sorry about the stream. Let's start that over. Mark that down, producer. Producer, mark that down.
I know I'm not supposed to be here, but this is my parents' home.
I know the feeling.
And they just they got canceled from their fire insurance.
Still no sound? Oh God, you guys bear with me. I'm so sorry. Also, can you guys, okay, good. We're doing it again. We're doing it live.
So they're dealing with this. They're 90 years old. And through the state of California, because of this, they're 90 years old. They've lived in this house for 75 years, and they've had the same insurance. And these insurance people decided to cancel their fire. And we're going through this, and it just happened, and they have no fire insurance. So thank you, California insurance companies, supporting residents who pay taxes and love California. I know I'm not.
So that was just awful. Her parents are 90. They've lived there for 75 years. And their insurance company last year canceled their policy. So this has actually been happening, according to Newsweek, a lot, in fact. So this is Newsweek. California insurer canceled policies months before Los Angeles wildfires. Now, I don't know if it was State Farm that she mentioned. State Farm is one of the biggest insurers in California, canceled hundreds of homeowners policies last summer in Pacific Palisades, the same area. And she was actually in Altadena, so it might be different. It's probably the same. The same area that's now being ravaged by the devastating wildfire. The move was justified by the company as an attempt to avoid financial failure as the frequency and severity of wildfires is growing in the Golden State, especially in at-risk zones. But as the multiple fires currently burning through Southern California threaten to cause devastating losses for residents, many will likely rely on their insurers to get back on their feet after the blazes are contained. Our number one priority right now is the safety of our customers, agents, and employees impacted by the fires, and assisting our customers in the midst of the tragedy, a spokesperson for State Farm told Newsweek in response to comment. Newsweek contacted the office of Commissioner Ricardo Lara for comment on email on Wednesday outside of standard working hours. Okay, so they just gave him a blanket answer of not wanting to comment. Several private insurers have cut coverage in at-risk areas across California in the past 3 years, leaving homeowners scrambling to find options for coverage. As a result, California's FAIR plan, which works as an insurer of last resort in the state, has more than doubled its policies between 2020 and 2024, reaching a total of 452,000 as reported by Cap Radio. So there's already a plan in place because California knows that insurance companies are bailing on them. Most insurers who have limited their offer in the state mention the rising wildfire risk as well as the state's regulations as the main reason behind their decision. Now, of course, that's such like you just saw that, right? We're mad at the state's regulations. Honestly, my guess is that they have the regulations are good. Just gonna go out on a limb here and say the regulations regulating the industry, the insurance industry, is probably good. Anyone want to venture that guess? Unable to increase their premiums to a level that will match their growing risk, companies have decided instead to cut coverage. So I guess, right, so the regulations sound like they're around. And again, I'm not an expert on this, and I'm excited to actually learn more about it and bring people on who do know more about this, because it's going to keep happening in so many states, including this one. So instead of basically upping their premiums, which the premiums are still really freaking high, they've instead decided to cut coverage, which, whatever. I'm assuming that given the choice between paying a little bit more and just not having the coverage, many people would pay more. It's triggered an ongoing property insurance sector crisis in the Golden State as homeowners are finding it increasingly harder to find coverage at a time when they so desperately need it. There are three, so this is more about how many fires there are. State Farm announced in April 2024 that it would have canceled a total of 72,000 policies in the state for houses and apartments, 30,000 of which were homes, as reported by ABC7. According to State Farm, about 1,600 insured homes in Pacific Palisades lost coverage because of the decision. The move came 9 months after State Farm announced it wouldn't issue new homeowners policies in California. So it basically stopped. It decided it would not. It not only would it cancel 72,000 policies, but it would not insure any new homes. Some zip codes saw a large percentage of their policies with State Farm being discontinued. More than 65% of the policies in zip code 95033 in the Santa Cruz Mountains ended last summer. Jesus. Santa Cruz gets a lot of rain, but still. 95409 near Santa Rosa. I think there was a fire not so long there. Nearly 48% were canceled. A complete list of State Farm's cancellations in the summer 2024 can be found at the very, very bottom of the article. Why did they cancel so many? State Farm President and CEO Denise Hardin explained the decision to cut coverage in at-risk areas of the state was one they were reluctant to make, but it was necessary for the future of the company. In other words, they were going under. They were literally going under, which I'm like, hey, let's move money to help these insurance companies, or let's move money into federally guaranteed insurance, or it sounds like, a statewide insurance plan, as it seems like almost 500,000 Californians are on right now, because of this gap of coverage. Obviously, I don't want to save the insurance companies. That's not what I'm trying to say, but come on, they're basically insolvent. Again, climate change making entire industries insolvent. As shared with the department prior to February 2023 filing, rate increases alone would have been insufficient to restore SFG's financial strength. We must now take action to reduce our overall exposure to be more commensurate with the capital on hand to cover such exposure as most insurers in California have already done. We've been reluctant to take this step, recognizing how difficult it will be what's interesting, right, is you can make the corollary to health insurance and the fact that before Obamacare, so many insurers were like, nah, you're too old and sick and gross. And you've had diabetes. I don't think so. We're not going to cover that. Right. It's the same thing. And so requiring them to cover homes should come along with the job. The CEO says, wrote to California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara last year, we're acutely aware of the political challenges that the actions needed to improve State Farm's financial position pose to broader reform efforts. Please know we have an ongoing desire and commitment to collaborate with you and your staff, as well as the governor's office, to achieve these reforms as quickly as possible. But for now, we're going to let 72,000 people and homes just completely not have coverage. California authorities, however, trying to stop insurers from backing off the state's market. In December, the state passed a new regulation which will require insurance companies to offer coverage to residents in at-risk areas. So again, that stipulation, like Obamacare. Insurers will be required to write policies in areas, quote, equivalent to no less than 85% of their statewide market share. I think I understand that. Californians deserve a reliable insurance market that doesn't retreat from the communities most vulnerable to wildfires and climate change, Lara said in a statement last month. This is a historic moment for California. Okay, so Lara works for the state. I apologize, I misstated that earlier. The 85% threshold required under new regulation won't be reached immediately, but companies will have to match a 5% increase every 2 years. Critics of the regulation have raised concerns over the fact that the law doesn't require new policies fast enough to prevent what could be real disasters in at-risk areas, and it could lead to consistent premium hikes. So, right, there has to be a cash infusion. There's no way to do this other than giving a cash infusion, right? However you cut it, you can have these requirements, but it's the same, if they take too long to ramp up, the point is then your home burns down, and you're completely left with nothing. And again, so many people who do have insurance policies, a lot of these policies aren't very good. They won't cover very much. If they're going to fight them on everything, if they didn't have a video of every single thing that was in their home, they're going to fight them on what they will cover, what they won't cover, to say nothing of the actual home itself. Some will only cover so much as basically covering the banks and what is still owed to the banks. So the mortgage, again, I'm not super clear on it, but they will and are finding ways to not cover people. So yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And it should not be handled by private industry. If private industry can't and will not insure people, then this is not the way to go. And again, lastly on this, healthcare to fire, a fire hazard or flooding or whatever, and the analogy is so apt because where we are in this country is we do not care about prevention, and we also just sit around and play Russian roulette every single day of our lives with healthcare and with our homes and fires and wildfires and floods and natural disasters. We just play Russian roulette. But at this point, when it comes to natural disasters, we're right up there with sickness and getting a bad diagnosis. It is not a question of if, it's a question of when. It's not a question of if you're going to get sick or be injured or need an ambulance or need some kind of, heaven forbid, a cancer treatment, right? It's when. We're just kind of waiting around because it's going to happen. Our bodies age and also things happen, accidents happen, right? And so again, it's not a question of if, it's when. And the same thing now with climate change. We're just sitting around hoping and waiting. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not my family. I mean, for me, I'm like, I am just south of where the evacuation zone was. But again, Russian roulette. I could sit here and be like, oh, I'm just going to move on with my life because like I happen to not, my home happened to not burn down. Cool. But it's like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And what's crazy and like living in LA, you sort of wonder, you're like, well, I mean, there's so many homes. Look at all these homes. Surely no one would allow all of these homes to burn down. And then they do. And again, there was something very unstoppable about these fires. They are still 0% contained. The winds were that you could not fly helicopters or planes in these winds. That's how strong the gusts were. It was simply too dangerous. So then if we know those things, how are we better prepared on the ground to meet this moment? We're clearly not. Because flying a plane, I mean, think about it, right? Flying a plane full of water is just like, it's not tenable when the whole reason for your wildfires is 100 mile an hour winds. So, but again, please make sure we divert all of our fresh water to creating AI data centers from an Emirati billionaire that Trump wants to bring in. Like, that's great. Cool. I'm so glad we signed that bill in Arizona. It's not like Arizona has a lack of water, right? It's not like California has a lack of water. It's not like there's deserts in these states. It's just insane. Hey, you know what? You can super chat this channel anytime you want. You can also become a patron of this show. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom is where you go to support me and my little labor of love and the videos without any sound. Thank you so much in advance to everyone who has. You guys are stellar and wonderful, and I love y'all. There's so many perks. There's so many reasons to join. You get 20% off the adorable little merchandise. You get 60% off the American Prospect magazine. You get 25% off your entire order from Sunset Lake CBD, which is my sponsor, sunsetlakecbd.com. Awesome company. 25% off. Usually it's just 20% off with the coupon code for Antifa, but patrones get extra. Plus you get access to all these bonus episodes. So do it, even though I'm literally in evac and the sun is coming in. Hang on one second. I just had to fix that. That was upsetting. Now I'm in darkness. Let's, the other thing that I think is really important is like, if there's one thing, here's the one thing I will say about regulation. The only thing I think needs to be deregulated in the state of California, but not deregulated to the point where we're allowing prisoners to be firefighters and underpaid. But I do think that the qualifications for being a firefighter should be a little bit lower. Just like lower them to like cop status. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so you're a little bit out of shape, but are you willing? Can you hold a hose? Do you know how to drive? Are you good under pressure? I mean, I guess that's different for cops. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we'll get into the funding, but that to me is because the requirements for being a firefighter are quite high. I'd say bring those down a skosh. Give some incentives for people to be volunteer firefighters during wildfire season. But yes, it is true that 400 incarcerated firefighters have been deployed in these latest fires. They earn between $5.80 and $10.24 per day, plus $1 an hour when responding to active emergencies. Hundreds of incarcerated firefighters are helping battle the destructive blazes that are rapidly spreading across California. The Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation said on Wednesday it deployed 395 imprisoned firefighters across 29 crews. I mean, do you get to, like, are you free after that? Like, does this buy you some amount of parole? Maybe it does. Across 29 crews, while the county fights on multiple out-of-control blazes fueled by extreme winds and dry conditions, the incarcerated crews are embedded with the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, and it's nearly 2,000 firefighters who've been stretched thin from several simultaneous emergencies. 2,000? 2,000? That's it? 40 million people? 2,000? That seems small. Anyone else? CDCR operates more than 30 fire camps across the state where people serving the state prison sentences are trained in firefighting and support authorities as they respond to fires, floods, and other disasters. The sites, also called conservation camps, are considered at minimum security facilities. CDCR crews have at times accounted for much as 30% of the wildfire force in the state. And here you can sort of see the map of where the fires are exactly located. The fire camp wages are meager, but considered high-paying jobs behind bars, with CDCR firefighters earning, again, between $5.80 and $10.24 a day. And a day, and then an additional $1 an hour? Come on now. That's so gross to me. That's just so gross. Nothing says overly incarcerated, don't value human life, fucking late stage capitalist hellhole, like making incarcerated people fight fires for what could you maximum get, $18 a day? Here's $20. Thanks for saving this mansion. Insane. Of course, they think it's good, you know, because it's like, hey, it's more money than you would doing other stuff, other slave labor that we have not outlawed in this state because voters are trash. We did have a ballot measure, by the way, to eliminate slave labor in prisons, and guess what? We didn't pass it. So, big blue California, not actually that blue, and that is a more important question. They must have 8 years or less on their sentence. Some convictions, including sex offenses and arson, are disqualified. That makes sense. If you've done arson, probably not a good candidate to put out fire. If they need anybody to start fire, that could be warranted and good. Graduates of the program have reported difficulties accessing firefighting jobs once released. No. Discriminating against formerly incarcerated people? Where? Mota recalled the grueling nature of the job. We always had this reputation on the fire ground of being the ones who did the dirtiest work, the hardest work, got there the earliest, stayed there the longest. There was a lot of respect we get from other fire crews, but that also takes its toll. Still, she added, firefighters love to do this frontline work that's fierce and intense and has the potential to save lives. She's the director of Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition, a group that supports formerly and currently incarcerated people. Said firefighting wages were helpful, but people still struggle to get by. Nobody's saving money with wages when you go home. Nobody's able to send money to cover the expenses their children are incurring. Yeah, obviously, that doesn't cover like childcare for the day, $20. That's an hour, my guy. Anyway, So yes, some incarcerated people are being sent to fight these fires in California. Before we move to Karen Bass, Rick Caruso, and some of this political stuff, let's read some comments and look at this one. I'm curious about this one piece that More Perfect Union put out. Rennie Martin, thank you for becoming a member. Robert, thank you for your super chat. Trump wants Canada and Greenland because insane greedy billionaires he worked for actually believe when things get hot, they will just move there. I'm glad you're all safe. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with natural resources. Greenland is what, isn't it like one of the, no, it's not the largest, but there's freshwater resources in Greenland. There's other, I'm sure other natural resources. I don't know, pipeline stuff, who knows? It's not just stupid anymore. Someone hanging out at Mar-a-Lago is like, you know what, Greenland, I got an idea. Thank you, Electron Creations, for your super sticker. Appreciate you. Randy Alina, thank you for your super chat. Our kids, Fran, from Western North Carolina. I don't know what this means, but I appreciate the super chat. Rage Rock for now, thank you for that. It says, thank you, Francesca, for your commitment to the show and in general for being such an important and delightfully progressive voice. Wishing safety and serenity to you and your home in California. Thank you so much. And Jesse Drinks, thank you for giving 5 memberships out. I need a drink now. I was about to bring a beer up in here and I forgot. Now I'm sad. But that's so nice of you. Thank you. Camperman, thank you for being a member. Stay safe, Franny. Stay focused with the Focus CBD gummy. That's right. I forgot my gummies. You know, it turns out when you're evacuating your home, gummies are not the first thing you're bringing. By the way, I really hate my posture in the mirror here. I'm in a mirror and you can see my posture and I just look like dumpy. There we go. See? I used to do flamenco for a little bit when I lived in Argentina. Argentina is known for tango, but flamenco is super fun and it's all about the chest and you got to like lift up and sit up straight. But sadly, that's not my natural status is hunch. Isaiah Taylor, thank you for the super chat. Gaza meet Los Angeles. Los Angeles meet Gaza. Anyway, I'll let you two get acquainted. Love you, Fran. First time donor. America's having its Gaza-Palestine moment. Be safe. Love you from Tallahassee, Florida. Ooh. Sending you love right back. Yeah, I mean, that is... I don't want to be like glib about these comparisons in terms of, the destruction that is being wrought there is very much perpetrated by a genocidal state. It's a war crime. This is not a war crime, but the amount of devastation when you see the images of rows and rows of homes completely gone, the first thing I'm sure we all thought was that looks like Gaza. That looks exactly like Gaza. And, I think especially, thinking about the people whose homes have been destroyed, and thank God, that so many of their lives were spared and there was accurate information about needing to evacuate. But imagine if there was nowhere to go, right? Imagine if they had to live amidst the rubble. And by the way, speaking of Gaza, conditions, LA is under complete boil water alert, meaning we can't drink our own water right now because it's all contaminated with ash. It's nothing but ash. I mean, that's the thing is like, if you got away with your life, if you got away with your home, you can't be more than a minute outside. I was a minute outside getting stuff into my car to go. And I felt that for the next 4 or 5 hours in my lungs. It's completely unsafe to breathe the air, completely unsafe. And you could stay inside and you could turn on all of your air filters. Them shits are beeping at you. They're like, you need to go. They're giving you the little skull and bones death flash. RJ, thanks so much for this. And they're so militant about talking about looters. Have you noticed how tough they are? But when it comes to insurance companies, big animal, aggro, kid gloves, where's their toughness? Can't stand it. Honestly, I really don't give a shit about looters. I totally agree with you. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of tasteless, but I'm not worried about Starbucks right now. I'm just that's not, I have way more ire for fossil fuel companies, for city officials, for Republicans who do not believe climate change is real. And no. Scratch that. Guys, if you've listened to me for a few years, you know that I say about this multiple times. Republicans know climate change is real. Tell all of your friends and family who are Republicans that their party knows that climate change is real. However, they've made the decision to not help us. They have decided, and they said as much, that the worst has already been done. Ergo, there's no reason to change course right now. You want to know how I know this? Because under Donald Trump 1.0 in the first administration, the Transit Authority got rid of fuel emission standards. They said, no, it's fine. You can spew as much fossil fuels from your fucking truck or from your, whatever into the atmosphere. We're going to get rid of these. We recommend no fuel emission standards. Why? Part of the reason was that climate change is already here and already having an impact, and this would not help it, which is obviously wrong. But they basically admitted, and it was buried in this transit report, that climate change is already here. It is man-made. Emissions from trucks, cars, airplanes specifically, manufacturing does contribute to greenhouse gases that trap the sun's heat in our atmosphere and warms us and is cooking us. They've admitted that. Fox News, they do stories all the time. I remember Greg Gutfeld talking about, the sixth extinction is here. I mean, a mass amount of animals are dying off, but hey, they're doing the stories, guys. They know that it's real, but their MO is, well, has the Russian roulette hit you? Was there a bullet in your chamber? No. Are you rich enough to survive it? Yes. Can you rebuild your mansion? Absolutely. Can you just move out of state? No problem. Well, then fuck it. Then why do we have to do anything about it? It's not your personal problem. If you're individually rich enough to be above this, and that threshold for how rich you have to be to survive gets higher and higher and higher and higher, doesn't it? Thank you so much, PB, for that super sticker. Thank you to Linda Martinson for the super chat. Please stay safe. Take care of you and the family. Love your channel. Love you. Isaiah Taylor, America feels it's untouchable from the universe. I mean, it's mostly just capitalist ideology. Allison Rewa, this place is a nightmare. As always, the only thing we can count on is each other. So I just want to say I completely agree. And for right now, that's what we have. We have to support our neighbors and our friends. We have to check in on them. We have to, donate where we can. We have to go volunteer our time at shelters, at places where people are, still putting their lives back together from the myriad of, climate disasters that have been, that will be. I mean, it's endless, right? It's the only thing that we have and we can do at our fingertips is this mutual aid. That being said, there is a political angle to this, and it doesn't have to just come down to everyone's individual GoFundMe. It's such bullshit that we continually, whether it's a healthcare related crisis or it's a climate related crisis, that we're continually in reactive mode, that we perpetually, whether it's a mass shooting, we perpetually live in this Russian roulette ass society that completely, if you get picked off, it's so Hunger Games, guys. It's so fucking Hunger Games. If you get picked off and you're the person that dies, sayonara. It doesn't matter. Sorry, that sucks for you. It's not here. Am I not currently on fire? If I'm not currently on fire, then what does this have to do with me? Sweet Aim Dragon, Greenland hadn't been of interest if it hadn't been for climate change thawing the ice. That's very true. Totally. Now they're a bunch of fresh water from all of these, however millions of years old glaciers that are now falling into the ocean. Hell yeah. We can bottle that. The way we live our lives on this planet is absolutely out of sync, and it's disgusting. And it's terrifying, and we can change it, and we must change it. But I'm just I feel you. For you guys who are look around, you read that, you're just sick. You're sick with all of it. I feel that fucking sickness, man. I feel that real hard. But I do want to talk about Los Angeles. So just a caveat, I want to have more folks on to talk about this who are far smarter than me. I've had council members before they won their seats, Hugo Soto Martinez and Eunices Hernandez. Both of them won they're progressives. They're awesome. They sort of came up in the post-2020 BLM uprising. And they also, in Eunices' case, she replaced a incredibly corrupt city council member. We just had Isabel Jurado, who kicked Kevin De Leon out of his seat, which is excellent. So there are more and more progressives. They happen to be young people. They happen to be people of color. Isabel Jurado is Filipina. I mean, the reason it matters is because they're representative of people who are here. They are working class. They come from movements. Hugo Soto Martinez is like DSA supported. So like, Democratic Socialists of America. So like, the good things are happening on a local level, but it's still not nearly enough. And it is true, apparently, despite some naysayers and some Democratic sort of stalwarts who can never admit that the Democratic Party messes up and consistently relies on police as a stopgap measure for their own citywide neoliberalism in order to clean up the externalities, the consequences of their own neoliberal policies, i.e. the unhoused people, the mentally ill people, right? The crime stemming from said, from the other crises, even though the crime is going down and has been going down. Cops work well with homeowners. What's interesting about this moment that we're living in right now is a lot of homeowners were people whose homes burned down. How many cops are going to fucking help bring that home back? Where were the cops when the flames were engulfing people? Where were the cops that consistently suck up the majority of LA's city budget by a long shot? So how are the cops going to protect you in this moment? Oh, they're going to protect your home from being looted. Yeah, your home is going up in flames. So let's just get that straight. And this is from The Intercept, but of course there's a lot of local reporting on it. LA did give more money to cops while cutting fire budgets, and now it's burning. Thanks to Schuler Mitchell. As of January, again, so none of these are contained. They're still not contained. As hundreds of firefighters race to stop the spread, gusting Santa Ana winds and a landscape desiccated by a bone-dry winter, an anomaly linked to broader climate change trends aren't the only obstacles LAFD is facing. The fire department. The fire department makes up 6% of the city's budget. Meanwhile, the LAPD gets 15% of the budget, more than twice, more than double. In June, LA Mayor Karen Bass signed an adopted $12.8 billion budget that cut the fire department's funding by more than $17.5 million, or around 2% of the previous year's budget of $837 million. It was the second largest departmental operating cut to come out of the city's 2024 to 2025 fiscal year budget, which shaved funding from the majority of city departments, but not the police. The Los Angeles Police Department received a funding bump of nearly $126 million. The LAFD makes up about 6% of the city's expense budget. The LAPD received 15% of the funds. What is currently happening and unfolding is what we've been warning about, said Richie Sergienko, a lawyer and organizer with People's City Council LA. This People's City Council is awesome. They put out a people's budget every single year, which basically suggests like, hey, if we had a city that actually worked for real people and met people's needs rather than businesses' needs, and rather than sort of like perceived safety needs and crime needs or whatever, this is what it would look like. So People's City Council are dope. The consistent defunding of other city programs in order to give the LAPD billions a year as consequences. These elected officials do actually have blood on their hands. The city is unprepared to handle this fire, and Los Angeles shouldn't be in that position. Other departments that received major cuts included the Bureau of Street Services, Bureau of Sanitation, and General Services for an overall budget decrease of $250 million. Funds for rental support, homelessness services, and street lighting were also reduced. Now, the one silver lining, first of all those things are what? That's not window dressing, but sanitation, street services. All of these things are about public safety as well. All of these things are also about, like, trash on the streets, things that sort of give the perception of crime without necessarily being crime. And what does that do? When you have the perception of crime, and I know this because I lived in San Francisco for so long, and there's an epidemic, of course, of smash and grabs in your car. Now, the thing about, I could go on forever about this, but smash and grabs are really important to cops. They love smash and grab. Why? Because no one dies. So there's no murder, there's no homicide. But people get their items stolen from their car, and you got to pay for like a new window and all this, but it's perfect because it gives the illusion that there's real serious crime in the city when there's actually not. There's only a few like corners, certain streets, alleys that SFPD knows where you're gonna get your shit stolen and broken into. It always happens. In fact, they know the perpetrators. They do it with tools that are specifically designed to do it. Like, it's easy for them, I'm not saying like a crowbar is that hard, but you know what I mean? Like, it is good for cops to have less sanitation on the street, like less lighting on the street. Lighting is also something that leads to public safety. When you light a street, private businesses know this, right? It's like, wasn't Walmart or one of these superstores sued because they weren't putting any lights around their big box stores, and that would lead to illicit activity happening, people getting hurt, assaulted, and all this. But lighting is a perfect example of that. But all of that benefits cops because it's like, ooh, it looks dark and it's dirty. Ergo, you should be afraid. Ergo, give me more money. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's perfect. The other thing I was going to say is the one thing LA has, and I'm going to see if I can get him on, is we have a comptroller. We have a city comptroller who basically looks over the budget and makes sure, speaking of like, we can't handle it, how are we going to pay for it? Kenneth Mejia is his name. Kenneth Mejia consistently puts out these reports. He's sounding the alarm and looking at the budgets, and the line item for cops is through the roof, right? It's through the roof. Meanwhile, everyone else gets a cut. So I'm trying to see if I can bring him up here and just let me just, since I shouted him out, since I've invoked his name, let me bring up his Twitter profile. So this is his, of course, pinned tweet. As the city of LA goes broke, one of the many questions we get is, where are our tax dollars? The city just started a new fiscal year. If you want to know how the mayor and the majority of city council increase or decrease departments' operational budgets, see below. Guys, first of all, libraries is the second biggest line item, which is tight. I love my LA library. I love my library, dog. But look at this. Police, number one, 126 million. Library, 14.6 million. 14.6 million. How many times more is that? Housing is next, 10.7 million. City attorney is next, which is funny because it sort of relates to the police. Like, if you have a bunch of out of control cops who, Kenneth Mejia also talks about this a lot, basically all of the payouts that have to come from the LAPD for, I don't know, shooting an unarmed person. In fact, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, his cousin was shot and killed by the LAPD last year. He was having a mental episode, a mental health crisis, and he was shot. He was shot and killed needlessly. And so again, if the family wants justice, if the family would like some kind of restitution, who's going to pay for that? Fucking taxpayers. And the city attorney is going to have to help out with that. Recreation, 8.7. City planning, 2.8. Yeah, the street lighting, 5.3 million. You know what I mean? Like this is let's just when we say, and when I hear the squawking about defund the police is like a really bad slogan. We shouldn't defund. Motherfuckers, this is what we're talking about. All we are saying, the sign of defund the police It's just the half of the sign. You open the full cardboard up and the rest of the sign says defund the police and put the money into street lighting and put the money into a retirement department, put the money into city planning, put the money into parks and rec, put the money into housing. That's all we're saying. That's the rest of the sentence. Also, LA is at a deficit. LA is like, again, not doing well. So it's not about Californians pay so much taxes. Wow, I'd rather keep all my taxes. I can't believe I'm taxed this much. And now look at all these homes on fire. No, it's where your tax dollars are going that matters. And to this end, I do think it's important, let's just finish this out. It's important to talk about Karen Bass, and then it's important to talk about not Karen Bass. Only 3 city council members, Hugo Soto Martinez, Nithya Raman, and Eunices Hernandez, all 3 former Bituation Room guests, not to brag, voted against the budget last May, noting in a press release that it allocated tens of millions of dollars to fund LAPD positions that would likely remain vacant. So we funded straight up non-existent positions. We gave money to non-existent LAPD positions instead of the fire department. Cool. That's because the LAPD has struggled to recruit officers in recent years. Gee, I wonder why. An LAPD spokesperson reached by The Intercept said they could not respond to questions at the time of publication. The controversial cuts were ostensibly made to help close the city's budget deficits. Critics, however, have noted that the defunding of the fire department is a recipe for disaster as climate crisis brings increasingly devastating fires to the drought-stricken region. While it's unclear that any amount of staffing could have fully contained the fires raging across Los Angeles this week, the call for help and the firefighters traveling in to assist from across California and nearby states shows that any additional capacity could have been useful. Here's the comptroller said that the most recent LAFD budgets included a reduction in sworn payroll, reduced funds for operating supplies, and cuts to 58 positions. In December, the Board of Fire Commissioners sent a report to Bass and the City Council outlining how the funding cuts had adversely impacted the department's crucial services. LAFD is facing unprecedented operational challenges due to the elimination of critical civilian positions and $7 million reduction in overtime variable staffing hours, wrote Fire Chief Kristen Crowley. These budgetary reductions have adversely affected the department's ability to maintain core operations such as technology and communication infrastructure, payroll processing, training, fire prevention, and community education. The LAFD's Fire Prevention Bureau, for instance, had 6 of its roles cut and its overtime hours reduced. Crowley wrote that the decrease in overtime created an inability to complete required brush clearing inspections, which are crucial for mitigating fire risks in high hazard areas. Or in the words of Donald Trump, cleaning all of this up. You just gotta sweep, you need a good little brush. Now, I am not here to defend Karen Bass. I'm not here to defend defunding the fucking fire department. I'm not here to say that this is a good Democrat. But what I am here to say is that in this moment, you are hearing the most paint chip eating analysis about the fires and how somehow if a Republican were in charge, none of these fires would have happened because Republicans are alpha males and the fires are like, oh shit, I don't even lift, bro. I'm scared now. Peace out. And the winds would have been like, oh dog, oh, your masculinity and your tough on crimeness are so overwhelming. I don't even want to blow through anymore. So what is happening is this is being turned into a political football. And I believe in politicizing this moment. I believe in politicizing it to be against fossil fuel industries. I believe in politicizing it to be against the insurance industries. I believe in politicizing this moment so we are truly prepared for the next natural / completely man-made disaster. But I am not here for doing dumb politics about, well, if it were Rick Caruso, instead of Karen Bass, this could have been prevented. If it weren't Governor Gavin Newsom and it were fucking Larry Elder or some fuck, that this would have been preventable. Let me explain this. I have no love for Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass, but we just talked about maybe 45 minutes ago a program that exists in California, which steps in to assist homeowners with fire insurance where State Farm and private insurers have left them. Do you think that that program would even be in existence were it not for a Democratic majority and Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom's done a lot of bullshit. Homeless encampment sweeps, vetoing harm reduction efforts by his own fucking state assembly. The guy is real trash. But if we've ever learned maybe anything in the last 8 years, maybe the last 20 years, it's that just when you think you've got trash, there's always trashier. There's always someone who is absolutely worse than what you currently have. Now, that's not to say to settle. That's not to say we don't actually, like I said, I need the politician to say, defund the police and keep it in the ground. I'm voting for that person. I also want them to win. I want them to actually have political momentum to win, because ultimately I will vote against the worst person. But it is important to not play into this dumbness. Now, I will say, this was not a good look for Karen Bass. Karen Bass was abroad. She was visiting Ghana. She, I guess, had been planning this, and she was in the air when all of this happened, or was in Ghana when all of this happened, and immediately came back. Apparently, she took a military flight back to LA to be on the ground as soon as possible. But the mere fact that she wasn't in Los Angeles, everyone's freaking out about. Now, look, I don't pretend to defend, like, you must be at the, swearing in of the new Ghanaian president. Like, I'm not sure what the role for an LA mayor is in Ghana, but again, I might be wrong. Just seems like she should be here. But it doesn't fucking matter that she was, like, away. Like, I don't, like, or her home wasn't burned out. I don't, like, that. That's dumb. That's dumb politics to me. This, however, was probably not a good look, as someone's asking her, and it's very funny. Obviously, the right is freaking out about this. Here is a non-reporter, just somebody asking her whether she, in fact, defunded some of the fire department, what she has to say for herself. She's clearly in a jet bridge arriving in Los Angeles. And see if you can pick the moment that you're suddenly not on the same page with this guy.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding?
Oh boy, please open that door. I swear to God. Oh boy. Oh, now she got to go around? Damn. Also, how tall is this person? Okay, so there she is. She's standing there super awkwardly. I guess she wants to get down the other way. And this guy is saying, have you nothing to say to the citizens of LA? And then brings up Elon Musk's name. Now, when you invoke the Musk, that suddenly is a buzzkill for me. I love the bird dogging. I love the stepping to power. I love the asking, do you have anything to say to the citizens of LA? Do you, why did you actually defund the, fire department? I do feel like she had a whole plane ride to maybe think about what she was going to say. Should she be approached by any media? Or maybe her crisis, manager, the PR team for the LA mayor's department was just like, don't say anything until we workshop this and focus group it, but like, you could at least say something. And I know she has since done press conferences, but just in that moment looked bad. And of course it's making the right wing rounds. And I do want to just say, by the way, some people are saying online like that the fire department wasn't defunded. No, it was, guys, it was. There was like some technicality that like maybe it wasn't, but it was. Now, of course, here's what I will explain about California. You hope, because you say, oh, it's a blue state. You think that maybe there's shades of blue. Like maybe it's like a blue state where there's like deep blue. Maybe there's more progressives running. Maybe there's an actual like progressive, movement that really, battles it out over in Sacramento. Not true. California is very much simply ping-ponging, just like the rest of the country, between two feckless elitist parties. One of them can never get elected, the Republican Party, and the other, again, Democrats, rely on the fact that it's a blue state to continue to be reelected and yet do the bare fucking minimum. However, I have defended Gavin Newsom against recalls because I don't want a Republican billionaire to take a bad situation and make it even worse. And to that end, Rick Caruso, who is a real estate billionaire who owns multiple massive shopping centers throughout Los Angeles, including luxury high-rises, ran against Karen Bass in the election, whenever the hell that was, 2019, 2020. And it was very close between the two of them because he ran on, it was later than that, he ran on not defunding the police as if Karen Bass was, being super tough on crime and eliminating homelessness. Just like, because again, he's a former Republican, but he ran as a Democrat, again, because he knew that he would get elected as a Democrat. Now we're in a time when everyone's like, maybe Rick Caruso was right. Maybe Rick Caruso is the answer. Maybe we should get a private real estate billionaire to be our new mayor to stop the fires, because these baby-brained idiots have no idea, like truly don't understand patterns and have no idea how anything works. So that's why I want to let's just do a little. Wait, hang on. Before we dig into who Rick Caruso is, let's look at Rick Caruso really milking the shit out of this moment as he is interviewed by Fox, of course, talking about the Palisades fire. And he says, oh no, LA looks like a third world country.
My heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this? What was your brush mitigation program? I heard you earlier.
Okay, so obviously Rick Caruso is using this as a moment to say obvious shit, like we're all saying, like where's the funding and why aren't we, where's the brush mitigation and all that, as if brush mitigation could do anything, guys. Like people's trees were brush, you know what I'm saying? Like people's homes were tinder, people's lawns and shit like that. But he's also noticed, he said, we look like a third world country. How many times do we do climate activists, do people who have eyes and ears have to point out that the climate crisis doesn't care how much money you have, doesn't care what hemisphere you live in, doesn't care how much, how big your economy is, it will get you. And it is not discerning. This is not fucking, some exclusive restaurant. This is not, climate change is not a bouncer. Everyone gets in the club. Everyone can come into the club, doesn't matter what you're wearing. You will be subject to what Mother Nature has been distorted and twisted into doing. So that's important to know. But I love that he calls us a third world country. And Daniel Lee, thank you so much, obviously, for all of your comments. And Daniel's an awesome follow on all social media too. Epicenter of neoliberalism. When I moved here to LA and had a Republican mayor and a Republican governor, a bunch of Republicans just changed their party affiliation, not their policy. So that's exactly what Rick Caruso did to run for mayor when he did. He was lifelong Republican, anti-abortion lifelong Republican. So that's fun, staring down sort of a possible future of, not a possible future, sorry, a current reality of lack of abortion rights. If Rick Caruso were mayor right now, would he be saying that this should be a safe haven for people seeking abortions? Should people still be allowed to get abortions who are out of state or who are in state? Should this be a safe haven for immigrants? Should this be a sanctuary state? Yes, these are some of the things that even the scum of Newsom, even he says things like this, that it's important that California is a safe haven for immigrants and a safe haven for people seeking abortion and women's health care writ large, right? Again, the floor can always go lower, but we need way better candidates. And these Democrats, I agree, are way too comfortable where they are. But I love Knock LA, which is a local outlet here, and they do some awesome reporting, and they work with Ground Game LA. So just a big shout out to them. This is from when Rick Caruso was running. It was 2022. I knew it. I was like, 2022 was the perfect moment to run on a backlash to Black Lives Matter. And that's effectively what Rick Caruso did. Anti-abortion developer Rick Caruso is running for mayor to, quote, clean up LA. His meaningless tagline runs as a thread throughout his bold blanket policy promises. Caruso is a lone billionaire running for mayor this cycle. He's able to self-fund his campaign. So far, he's spent around $23 to $25 million of his own money. Public safety is one of the fundamental pillars of Caruso's campaign. He wants to further fund law enforcement, while LA City Council has already approved an $87 million increase to the LAPD for 2022 and 2023 budgets. Okay, so just before we continue, he is here on television saying that, the budgets for the fire department were cut. Why were they cut? We need to talk about that. Wanna bet if Rick Caruso had won the election, he would have cut them by even more. Again, floor, even lower. Caruso uses his tenure as the president of the Los Angeles Police Commission to prove he has the experience to solve public safety issues. He frames himself as a groundbreaking president who stood up to the political pressure to force real reform and oversaw a 30% reduction in crime while fighting for community policing and police accountability. He was the president of the LAPC from 2001 to 2003 and continued to serve on the board until 2005. Caruso claims to be the only candidate that has ever headed up a police department, while he missed nearly 38% of all the meetings he was supposed to attend, and was asked to resign after referring to Representative Maxine Waters as, quote, the bitch Waters. Cool. Reclaiming my time. The president of the LAPC does not hold the power he implies, does not have the wherewithal to alter how the police department runs or reduce crime by 30%, according to former police chief Bernard Parks. Parks wrote a highly critical response letter to an LA Times article published in April, pointing out the several lies about what Caruso accomplished while serving on the board. Caruso and former Mayor James Hahn were responsible for denying Parks' reappointment. Again, this is the former police chief, denying his reappointment and replacing him with William Bratton, infamous for encouraging stop and frisk policies. So, okay, you won't do stop and frisk, but we like stop and frisk, even though New York City basically was sued over stop and frisk, but okay. After Parks was denied his reappointment, Black leaders said they felt betrayed. This resulted in an uproar among community members, including a protest that shut down the Grove. The Grove is one of Rick Caruso's private outdoor shopping malls, just prior to its grand opening. Parks attributes Caruso and Hahn's unwillingness to appointment to his encouragement of a disciplinary system that demanded all LAPD supervisors file all of the public's complaints, no matter how small they seemed. This directly contradicts Caruso's claim he was invested in holding cops accountable. In an interview with Knock LA, Parks said that Caruso also excluded the fact that when Parks left in 2002, the department was already at a 30-year low in terms of crime, including homicide. Therefore, the accomplishments Caruso takes credit for happened before he ever sat on the board of police commission. So again, this is just to give you background on who this fucking guy is and like who the kinds of fucks are who come in and vulture these moments to have us thinking that somehow Republicans are better than Democrats. Like, right? So I'm just trying to give you background on that. Okay, on homelessness, what about homelessness? What about Rick Caruso, real estate billionaire? He has a plan or he had a plan to end street homelessness. States that the economic hardship is the #1 cause of new homelessness. Caruso also attributes homelessness to the lack of affordable housing, saying that building in Los Angeles isn't just expensive, it's designed to incentivize building high-cost luxury housing over affordable housing. I might agree with you there. But while Caruso currently, however, operates 4 luxury apartment complexes, 10 retail centers, 2 office spaces, and a resort in Miramar, he has yet to build a single unit of affordable housing. Caruso's personal actions contradict the obvious solution he proposes, the building, quote, more housing of all types in all neighborhoods in a smart community appropriate way will end homelessness. Here's a picture of his luxury apartments at La Cienega and Burton Way, just FYI. One of his developments, again, 8500 Burton Way, looms over a chaotic intersection where Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, and the Fairfax district meet. Caruso's own statistics state that, quote, homelessness starts rising when median rents in a region exceed 22% of the median income. In LA, the median rent is 46.7%, the median rent is 46.7%, or half the median income. So people are spending half their income on rent. A 906 square foot 1-bedroom apartment at 8500 Burton Way rents between $6,500 and $8,500 a month. Jesus Christ. It's not that good of us. Nobody want to be there by the Beverly Center, by the Johnny Rockets. Fuck that. If the overall rent median is $2,952 and $2,707 for a 1-bedroom, the low-cost apartment unit is more than double the median cost. Again, so he's full of shit. So what you're seeing is he's saying the right things. Again, Republicans, especially in California, because they know if they package their message like Republicans in the rest of the country, they'll lose. So they try to sort of understand the problem. Oh, I understand the problem. It's that, housing is too expensive and there's not enough affordable housing being built, and They package the problem well. They analyze the problem well. And that's how they get Democrats who are empathetic, or liberals who are just like, yeah, I see that. I see income inequality and I get it. And I do think things should be more affordable. But then their solutions are more cops, right? Their solutions are, I'm going to make massive amounts of money with luxury buildings, right? The solutions aren't, hey, public housing, literally just public housing. Fuck this like private, public venture. No. Public housing. What if we did public housing, guys? What if we just did public housing? What if we did rent control? What if we just did rent control? Oh, but Californians also voted against rent control in this last election because we suck, actually. In fact, we suck. If you look into it, we suck. Caruso claims he's provided the city with the most loved community centers. Guys, when have you heard a man who builds malls refer to them as community centers? That's not a community center. You ever like want to kill a couple hours and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, but like you don't want to go to the mall because you don't want to spend money. You don't want to just have to like spend money to enjoy the outdoors or like be around somewhere where you're going to be tempted to spend money that you don't have. I feel like we all identify with that. So to say that like my private mall is a community center, no man, a community center is a community center. A library is a community center. A park is a community center. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a playground is a community center. Like that's a community center. Not, I've like went to a very cute, adorable community center in my neighborhood, like a Christmas pageant. There was free food. It was great. That's a community center. Not whatever not like having to buy like a, you know, I don't mean to pick on Beard Papa, or what is it? You know, whatever. Like not like a fucking, I don't want to have to buy like an Auntie Anne's pretzel just to like live my life. You know what I'm saying? Although they're good and now I'm hungry. While shopping can be considered recreational, it's limited to those with disposable income. This article says, obviously, is what I just said. If the economic hardship is the #1 cause cited for new homelessness and the majority of the population is spending 46.7% on their rent, a space dedicated to shopping simply doesn't serve the majority of the LA community. Exactly. So these were some of his ads. Look at this. We all want a safer LA. Defunding the police won't do it. I have a plan that will. Here's what we do. Everyone gets a private cop stipend. So you get $10 a month to have your own private police force. And what it's really going to be is it's the Uber of private security. So you get a voucher. Every LA Angelino will get a voucher to use my new private security app. We're working around the clock with Elon to develop it. I'm obviously being completely facetious, but these are the kinds of bird-brained ideas that the billionaire class like Rick Caruso have in terms of public safety, right? It's not even I wish it was a voucher. It's like, well, how can we get more investors in to figure out how to innovate our way out of a problem that literally we know how to solve? We do need more housing, but it should just be completely public. It should be Section 8. It should just be public housing. Of course, he's also donated $1 million to right-wing politicians and organizations. He made $6 million to donation to the USC Caruso Catholic Center. I wonder who it's named after, which is run by an anti-abortion group of bishops. He made his largest campaign contribution of $110,000 to former Ohio Senator John Kasich, who signed that ban on abortions. Oh, beautiful John Kasich, who now seems like a moderate, but actually paved the way for a bunch of extremists in his state. So, of course, he had to clarify that. Now, this is the best, and it's like kind of in the weeds, but it's so good, because Rick Caruso has, like, you know, the USC admissions scandal, obviously. Rich people paying their way for their kid to go to USC. He's a USC alum, and it gets real deep. It starts on a personal level. He's a proud alumni, former chairman of the school's board of trustees. In fact, the USC mayoral debate was the first of only 2 debates Caruso has attended thus far, because he just wouldn't debate. Caruso claims to have, quote, cleaned up the mess at USC by bringing on accountability, responsible leadership, consistent oversight, and effective and transparent reporting practices to our campuses. In reality, Caruso is responsible for creating the mess. He neglects to mention his personal involvement in the 2019 admissions scandal. He has silenced the voices of victims of sexual assault and continued to contradict the newly democratic politics with his money contribution to the USC Caruso Catholic Center. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. The 2019 college admissions scandal occurred during Caruso's reign on the board of trustees at USC. Operation Varsity Blues investigated parents of college applicants that bribed William Rick Singer to boost their children's exam scores and bribed college officials to admit students. USC accounted for most of these cases, several of which involved celebrities and brought major media attention. He was the head of the board of trustees during that time. You think he didn't know? Let's go deeper. Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli, you guys remember Lori Loughlin, obviously of Full House fame, has a daughter who's an influencer, Olivia Jade. Remember, her case caused even more uproar since she was, drumroll, vacationing on Caruso's $100 million yacht during the indictment. But no, please, this is definitely a better option than Karen Bass. No, yeah. I mean, we should go with Caruso. My daughter and a group of students left for spring break prior to the government's announcement yesterday. Once we became aware of the investigation, the young woman decided it would be best in her interest to return home. So, like, do we need to go over this how many times do we need to go over this? There is always someone worse waiting in the wings. And so, I disagree with people, sadly, like Cenk and sadly like Anna, who are probably going to talk a lot of shit about Karen Bass, simply blame Democrats. But the reality is this: we do not, and I know it's a sad reality. I know it's sad to admit that in California, there is not a robust working class movement that has electoral power. And I would actually argue that DSA is the closest because of the number of electeds that they have gotten on the 15-person city council in Los Angeles. It's 3, 4 at this point, 3 mostly, right? Unisys, Nithya, and Hugo. But that's pretty freaking good. But the sad reality is that if you want to look to California and say, man, we need better options than these Democrats, they're not there. They're not there yet. They need to grow. We need to support their leadership. We need to make sure. I'm really upset that George Gascon, I guess, lost his election, because I do believe in lower sentences for nonviolent drug offenders. I do believe in not throwing the book at people, not overly incarcerating people. But of course, California has a lot of wealthy people. It's a lot of elites and a lot of people who are super seduced by this libertarian mindset that somehow billionaires know how to do things best. But guess what? LA is not going to look like the Grove. It's not going to look like a shopping center if a Republican like Rick Caruso became mayor. It's going to look like a detention center, okay? It's going to look far worse. It's going to look like the worst parts of LA multiplied. So trust, the last thing I'll say, and we should, oh my God, it's so late. Last thing I'll say is the Olympics are going to be insane. It's crazy that LA is likely, we're already locked into the deal. I didn't have enough time to go into it, but we'll talk about it because the Olympics are coming up in 2028 and LA is the host. Here we've suffered some of the worst wildfires in LA's entire history, and there will be more money put to hosting the Olympics and displacing people to do so. What do you think it's going to do to rents that are already sky high? We're going to put more money to that than making the people whole who lost their homes in these fires. And that is absolutely something. You think Rick Caruso or a Republican will be like, we shouldn't hold the Olympics? No, they're very excited about that. And it's going to be used to staff up even more police officers. So again, it's a painful reality to admit that the progressive left in cities like Los Angeles don't have the legs, the power, the seniority that we'd like them to have. But that's where we come in. That's where we have to build political power. That's where we have to run candidates who can step to people like Karen Bass, and did. Gina Viola was on this show, who ran against Karen Bass. She ran in that race as well, right? And she fervently defended the idea that we need to move money away from the police force, and that was not helping people and keeping people safe. And we did have, I believe there was a runoff, right? And I voted, did I vote for her? Yeah. I think I voted for her. I can't remember one or both times voted for her. So again, but it's new, it's nascent. There's no politically responsible way to be against Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass without simultaneously supporting Republicans in the state. Like what I'm saying is you cannot do that. You have to do it very carefully. You have to do it carefully, and you have to name the people who you do support and the things that you do support. Because otherwise, you're playing into a narrative that the right absolutely fucking loves. And so when I take a step back and I look at these wildfires and I think about how Trump is going to assume office in, 10 fucking days, 11 days, and you're like, this is so perfect. everything going up in flames is how I feel about this country. And we will get more and more and more of it. The more billionaire a-holes who want to bring AI data centers, water guzzling, job killing AI data centers like fucking Donald Trump into office. We are so screwed. And yes, Biden, Butcher Biden. The Inflation Reduction Act was a start. It's not nearly enough. It was something to build on. We'll see if Trump cuts it and all the programs that are now in red states. But it's just not responsible to feed into a right-wing narrative, because that's what they are doing. So we must follow awesome organizations, accounts. Again, I promise to get those folks on this show, because we need to seize this opportunity to actually take aim at the 1% and not take aim merely at at low-hanging fruit. But again, it's this is the world we live in. This is just a wish and a hope and a prayer. I'm going to read some comments, and then this has been the very, very long bonus bish from my safe haven, evacuated safe haven. Thank you so much. Please consider becoming a member on YouTube or a patron, patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Another plug for that. This will go private after the fact and be available only to patrons. I may clip out a few things for y'all, but some comments, and thank you so much for your super chats. Let's see. May Money in the building says, hey, I'm so glad you're safe. You know, you always have a place up in the Bay if you need. That goes for all you Californians. Stay safe. Thank you so much, May Money. Appreciate that, Trent. Thanks for having the show. Appreciate you, Trent. And also, I wanted to shout out Sconaway1896, who became a YouTube member. Appreciate you. And Sora is my name, WAO. I've never seen this graph before. Thank you. God, yeah, the city budget graph is pretty upsetting. Trent's back at it. Says, here's to some gummies, a couple joints, or some Sierra Nevada pale ales. Thank you. I love a pale ale. Techno Steve says, afternoon, have you watched the news story about IG Horowitz in the 2020 election? Watchdog finds signs politics drove Trump's DOJ's probes of pandemic nursing home deaths. No. Interesting. I mean, I'm glad they've got to the bottom of it, but I'm sure that makes sense. Sailor Digurian, what's up? LA's funding priorities sound like they were put together by Anna. Stay safe, Francesca. Girl, you said it, not me. Should I buy a slap chop? What's a slap chop? Sounds like a Slim Jim mixed with like beer. I say do it. Whatever that is, I say do it. Guys, I will see you tomorrow back here from the bunker. Laverne Cox is joining me. I'm super excited to have her back. We're going to do an earlier show. It's going to be at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, so don't miss it. I'll see you then. Thank you so much for being patrons. Love you. Thanks for enduring all the technical difficulties. Adios.